Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Fan Appreciation Month here on Reaction and Review. Tonight, guys, I'm taking a look at a sci-fi film from 1981. That movie is The Road Warrior. Now, I know some people out there are probably going to tell me that I'm missing a little bit of the title there, and they're technically right. I guess I should explain. In the U.S., the movie is simply known as The Road Warrior, and everywhere else it's known as Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. The reason why it's not called Mad Max 2 in the U.S. is, well, just to put it real plain and simple, the first Mad Max kind of bombed in U.S. theaters, and it really wasn't discovered or even in any way appreciated until after The Road Warrior took off. Now, I kind of know what's in this, because apparently what little I know about the Mad Max mythos almost all comes from either this film or the third one, but apparently it's mostly from this one, so this should prove to be kind of fun. I did enjoy the first one. I'm kind of hoping that this one is going to be just as good, and because, as I stated when I covered the first one, I'm really into post-apocalyptic films, and this is far more a post-apocalyptic fare than the first one. I think I am going to be in for an awesome showing, but the only way I'm going to find out is if I shut up and I push play, and I'm going to do that right now. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out The Road Warrior. Okay, that is probably the coolest way I've ever seen anybody rig a shotgun. It's also very interesting that Max has been able to teach his dog how to actually shoot the shotgun when it's rigged like this. That guy's just awesome on a shitload of levels, man. Alright, guys, now, I totally understand that this has now become an incredibly common thing for movies that are set in the post-apocalypse, but I have to wonder, at what point did every single person in the wasteland decide to go and raid some mystical sporting goods store somewhere, where every single person has, like, shin guards, and hockey gloves, and football shoulder pads? Where the hell did all of this come, from? At what point did every person in the wasteland go, hey, I believe it's time for us to just dress as if we're going to play every sport on the planet? I'm sorry, it just kind of bugs me a little bit, okay? You know, guys, a thought just hit me. So, Max has to go out and he has to get this semi-rig so that way he can help this colony get their gigantic fuel tanker away from the wastelands. Question: how exactly did they get the fuel tanker there in the first place if they didn't have a rig? Or at least not a rig that was strong enough to pull the tanker? I totally understand, guys, that it is a stupid point to make, and without it, we really don't have a whole lot of story, at least not at the moment. But still, I'm wondering, how the hell did they get the tanker there if they didn't have a rig to pull it? I'm kind of curious now. Okay, I have a question. Exactly how long have they been chasing Max? Because not fucking 10 seconds back, it looked to be, like early dawn. We're talking like 7 a.m., 8 a.m. Now it looks like it's about noon. And actually a couple of these shots are actually starting to look almost like evening. Alright, so this shot apparently was shot a little bit poorly, and granted, I mean, it kind of sort of bothers me a little bit, but yeah, it really bothers me a little bit. You'd almost think that they try to keep some kind of consistency in terms of, like, the time of day with these, chase scenes. You know what I mean? Alright, guys, I really cannot properly explain this right now, but there's something about this fucking kid that just irritates the shit out of me. I really have no idea if it's the fact that the kid is feral. I really don't know if it's the fact that feral apparently also means incredibly stupid. There's just something about this goddamn kid, though. It just irritates the shit out of me. I just kind of wanted to share that. Well, guys, that was the Road Warrior. Let me shut that off. Okay. Before I get started and before I start blowing holes in this film's, writing and story and a bunch of other things, I want everyone to know that I did have a lot of fun watching this movie. I genuinely thought that the movie was really good. It's just, it has a whole lot of problems, and if you go into this and you think too much about it, you are gonna wind up despising this film. This thing, guys, is the very definition of the kind of movie where the only way to genuinely have fun with it is if you shut your brain off. That I never thought I'd say that about a movie and still say that it's good, but that is sort of the case here. I have a lot of questions, and perhaps maybe people who are more versed in the whole like Mad Max mythos will be able to fill in all of these holes for me. I kind of doubt it, but let's just see. Number one, I'm curious exactly how many years are supposed to have passed between Mad Max and the Road Warrior. I ask because apparently the world in Mad Max was still relatively civilized, and in the Road Warrior, everything has gone straight to hell. There, guys, is nothing even remotely close to civilization outside of a fucking oil derrick and a bunch of cars. That's literally it in terms of anything that even looks remotely like civilization. So basically, there must have been a handful of years past. I mean, there must have been at least like a decade past in order for everything to have gone that bad. And the only thing we have to sort of go by is that from the end of Mad Max all the way to the Road Warrior, Max now has a streak of gray hair, which actually looks almost blonde in some shots. It doesn't even look really gray. It's kind of odd. And I guess that is supposed to show that he is older and that he is aged. I'm really curious about that because we also have a child in this film. I'm going to get to that fucking kid in just a sec. Who is completely feral. And the only way that a kid could be that feral is if they had literally no contact with any sort of any sort of civilization for years. And the kid happens to look like he's about 7. I have no clue how long this kid's been hanging out with this fucking colony. Obviously not, long enough to actually become de-fucking-feralized or domesticated. Yes, I just said de-feralized. I don't even know if that's a fucking word. It is now. Anyway, the kid obviously has not been with these people long enough to become, at least in some way domesticated. But still, there must have been enough time for the entire world to just completely collapse for there to be a feral kid in this movie. That right there is one big question, exactly how much time has passed. I'm just sort of curious. It honestly is not going to impact the film much. 2, and I stated this earlier, this honestly has become a huge like trope when it comes to anything set in the post-apocalypse, is I am not even kidding when I say this. Every single character's wardrobe either came from a rag bin, a sporting goods store, or a sex shop. Which makes me wonder if those were like the last buildings left when everything officially went south. So the only things that people could do were grab clothing, which eventually turned into rags, bought up as much fucking like sporting goods as possible because you see everything from hockey masks to football pads to shin guards to hockey gloves. You see all of it. I saw one guy. he was wearing a fucking catcher's mask. It's like, okay, so they all went and they stocked up there, and those who couldn't find enough in the clothing or sporting goods aisles decided to go to a sex shop and grab all of the leather, goods they could. There's a whole lot of very bizarre leather, like bondage gear sort of things going on here. Which makes me wonder exactly how the hell did everything completely fucking, collapse and just leave clothing stores, sporting goods stores, and sex shops for people to get all of their, clothing, for all of their clothing and armor needs. I'm kind of curious about this. That kid, I might as well start talking about the movie itself, and in terms of writing, I might as well start off with the kid, because I was talking about the fucking kid earlier. That kid is incredibly irritating, and I think it has to do with the fact that the kid is feral, and the child doesn't even have a name. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, during the opening credits, if I'm not mistaken, the character is literally credited as feral child. So, this kid basically is just a dog. There is no other way to sum it up. This kid basically moves around and acts like and sounds like a dog, except when the kid has to throw his boomerang. Okay, that's literally it. Otherwise, the kid's basically just a drooling, snarling dog. And there's just something about that I found just incredibly irritating, because, guys, even fucking dogs know how to listen, and this kid refuses to listen to anybody and just insists on clinging to Max, no matter how stupid that choice may be. And when given safer options, the kid always seems to just gravitate towards Max, and it just didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me. Now, writing. I talked about how in the first Mad Max, they spent a ton of time building up characters and building up the world and building up the setting, ultimately leading up to the final 15 minutes being solid action. This film is the polar opposite of that. We have tons and tons of action, but they basically have taken the story and the character depth that was built up in the first film and effectively just flushed all of it by trying to sum all of it up in 2 minutes, and then basically just completely forgetting to build any other sort of character. Because they basically say that Max lost everything and just became an empty shell, which apparently was the writer's way of saying, we really do not want to make him deep, and we do not want to add depth to him. We are just going to make him a lifeless fucking badass who just wanders and kills things. And that's literally all that he is. Which means that he basically is just the film's villain, only he's not wearing a hockey mask, because that's also essentially the only thing that Humongous does, is just drives around and kills things. So basically Max and Humongous are pretty much the same character. That literally is how bad the writing is here in terms of character depth. Also, okay, now there is a big twist at the very end, which actually shows that some of these characters are really able to cognitively think. However, though, our villains, Humongous and his entire gang, do not have any kind of thought as to how the hell they are going to stop this colony from leaving with this massive tanker of gas they found, because they chase after the tanker and they start shooting at it in hopes of blowing the tires. Even though you could then hit the fucking tanker itself, thus causing the gasoline to leak. And if you're out looking for the gasoline, then that is the last thing you want to do. Why the fuck would you shoot at the tanker with anything? Now, moreover, exactly why in the hell were they focused on this one colony? I totally understand that it is because this colony found apparently the only oil fucking derrick in all of fucking Australia. But yeah, because there is no other one in sight, and nobody else even bothers to go out and attempt to find a second one. And also they are not only able to drill for oil, but they're also able to refine it. And they actually are able to refine it into various forms of gasoline, because at one point Max asks for diesel fuel and also for high-octane gas, which apparently means that this colony is able to make both with the oil that they drill. Which is rather interesting, because you would think that if they fucking know how to do that, then they'd probably be able to take care of this random gang of sexually fucking deviant sports fans who want to come barreling into their colony. But hey, that again is just me blowing tons of holes into the writing. The writing here is incredibly flimsy. However, though, the writing is certainly able to accomplish one huge thing, and that is it is able to get you to the action a hell of a lot faster, which is far more than could be said about the first film. So basically, guys, the first film is tons and tons of plot and very, very little, action. The second film is mountains of action and plot. What fucking plot? That's pretty much, that is pretty much the way to sum it up. And mind you, both of those are, equally good. And that honestly is why I cannot dump on this too much. Now, even though the writing is just absolutely, questionable from top to bottom, the acting here is incredibly solid. Nobody here phones in anything. In fact, honestly, even the fucking kid, that character I cannot fucking stand, even the fucking kid turns in an awesome showing. So frankly, guys, the acting here is top notch from top to bottom. It is fantastic work, which I am incredibly shocked at, because normally, guys, when a script has no story and the characters are this borderline lifeless, normally then the actors kind of sort of suffer a little bit when it comes to actually trying to make these characters live. But everybody here was able to pull it off, and that is awesome stuff. The action scenes, there are tons and tons of chase scenes and explosions and gunplay and everything else, and all of that is done very, very, very well. In fact, guys, that seriously is the reason to watch this, is just for the action scenes. So yeah, I mean, guys, if you seriously are just looking for a movie with tons of action, and awesome action at that, this movie has it. I do have to cite though, and well, actually, this right here is not part of the action. The action is just great. Camera work is a little bit of a mixed bag, because I mentioned this when I covered the first one. At times, instead of actually trying to drive at high speeds, which would be incredibly dangerous and would probably then be a hazard to the stuntman driving, they opted basically to drive a little bit slower, and then they decided to speed up the footage, which looked really cheesy in the first one. It looks really cheesy here. There are probably better ways of speeding up your film, but essentially running it at double speed, especially when you are driving in the desert and the smoke or the dust is billowing out from behind your vehicles at double speed. It really looks very, very poor. It looks very, very shit. Also, on the subject of camera work, I was talking about a scene where basically the time of day fluctuates from shot to shot. I have not seen a chase scene that poorly shot, specifically poorly shot in terms of time of day, since I saw They Saved Hitler's Brain. The difference here is that this chase scene at least was interesting, and you can totally look past the fact that it goes from morning to midday to late afternoon to early morning again to mid-afternoon. It continues to fluctuate as the chase goes, and it's the only chase where that happens. Because they have, guys, other, chase scenes, and all of those are filmed fine. But just this one scene was absolutely problematic, and I'm not totally sure why. Everything else, guys, like sound mix, lighting, well, honestly, everything here was filmed fucking outdoors, so you really don't have to worry about lighting much when you're working with natural sunlight. So yeah, lighting here is fine. The sound mix is good. The score here is awesome, because, well, if I'm not mistaken, actually, it's from the same guy who did the music for the first one. Yes, and you can tell it is the same kind of fantastic music. So ultimately, am I able to recommend the the, you know, Road Warrior? Yes, I am, as long as you're not looking for story, plot, or character depth. If you honestly are looking for something which is genuinely trying to tell a story, you are shit out of luck. However, though, if you honestly are just looking for perfectly mindless action fun, then this film is absolutely the perfect film for you. Now, with that said, I am able to recommend it. It's just like once more, if you are looking for an action movie which also has a plot, this one is not the film for you. Now, guys, because this is Fan Appreciation Month, the Road Warrior came off of the Amazon wish list as part of this Mad Max 3-pack. Now, the person who sent it in is named Mage, and you can find her YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/MadamCrystal. Swing over there, guys, and check out everything that she has. And Mage, thank you. I've been really curious about this movie for a long time. In fact, I've honestly been curious about the entire trilogy for a long time, and thanks to you, I will finally have my chance to watch, well, I actually have had my chance to watch the first two. I will now have my chance to watch the third one in roughly about like a week and a half. For you guys, for me, it'll probably be, you know, about a week. Knowing fucking me and the way, you know, that I film these. So anyway, Mage, thank you once more, guys. That is youtube.com/user/MadamCrystal. Please swing over there and check out everything she has, and if you like what you see, by all means, please sub to her. Now, that honestly was certainly there was certainly a little bit different, and guys, it really has been fun, and I'm actually hoping for the next episode of this to be, you know, equally as fun. I have heard various things, but you guys will find out about that one next time. So, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and I will see you all in the near future. Peace.